Welcome to Hannah's Heart.
So Hannah, she's just one of the women who did struggle with infertility in the Bible.
No matter who we are, we can be inspired by the fact that Hannah took her pain to God, and God heard her and was with her.
So when she was praying at the temple, she had been weeping and not eating, and her lips were moving, but her eyes were closed, and the priest was like, "Hey, why are you drunk at the temple?"
It can become an obsession when you want a child so deeply.
And desiring that baby and to be a mama. Every holiday, every Mother's Day.
This is not a show that's going to promise you a certain outcome, but this is a show that says, however God answers your cry, we know that He's enough.
Hey, I'm Ann, and I know you usually hear, and I'm Kendra, but Kendra is out today. She is getting ready at the time of this recording to have her sweet baby girl who is about to enter the world maybe any day now. So she is out, but I do have a special co-host with me today that y'all have met before. Will is in studio, my hubby. Say hey, Will.
Hello. Glad to be here.
So he is co-hosting with me today. We actually have some special friends on that we're going to introduce in just a second. First, I just want to give a quick reminder that you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube by searching Hannah's Heart. And you can also email us at hannahsheart@afa.net. We get prayer requests there and show suggestions, and it's really fun to see what you guys suggest that you would like to see on the show. So keep sending those our way. Will, you want to introduce our guest today?
Absolutely. Definitely excited for today's conversation with these guys. Definitely have been an encouragement to me and Ann as a couple, and then now as parents. Today we have my friend and pastor, Matt Powell, and his sweet wife, Andrea.
So we have watched them walk through some really hard times, just the time that we've been going to First Baptist here in Tupelo, where we live, and we've also watched them as they've gone through those times, grow closer, I feel like, to each other and grow closer to the Lord. And so that's what's truly been inspiring, to watch them do that. So y'all want to say hey?
Hello, I'm Andrea.
And I'm Matt.
It's good to have y'all here.
Yep.
Thank y'all for being here today. So a lot of times we start out just with our guests just telling us a little bit about themselves, like maybe how y'all met and y'all got married. That's a long story in itself, isn't it?
Yes, it is a long story.
So when did y'all meet?
Well, fourth grade is when Matt says he remembers meeting me.
So quite a long time ago.
And the kicker is that I do not remember Matt until the 7th grade.
Man.
But once I met him,
3 years.
Yeah, 3 years of stalking.
I was all in.
But it was also one of those things, it was like, did that really happen? Or is he remembering that wrongly? We were at her parents' house a few years ago, and the occasion that I remember meeting her was at that time, the Mall of Memphis had an ice skating rink, and I remember a bunch of children meeting there to ice skate. And I remember her being there, and that's the first time that I met her, and actually told my mom that day, that's the girl I'm going to marry.
No
of
way.
course, my mom said, that's ridiculous. Get in the car.
In fourth grade?
Yeah, in fourth grade.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh my
I thought
word.
big thoughts in fourth grade. So, but anyway, we were at her parents' house for Thanksgiving, and we found pictures that her mom had took of her and her sisters that day. And
Wow.
I'm in the
No way.
background of one of
He's
them. So I was
there. Oh, my
validated. I was
goodness.
like, I told you.
this really happened.
Yes,
Wow.
it really happened.
Yes.
Wow. So, that's cool. So after 7th grade,
Right.
y'all start dating?
9th grade is when he asked me out.
Yeah.
And dating looked like, hey, at church.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
I was
sitting
playing
next to each
basketball
other.
with friends after church, and I stopped during the basketball pickup game and asked her out, and then started playing
Wow,
basketball again. So
Yes.
it was like, hey, and I didn't even know what to say, and
So
she
will you
didn't
be
help
my
me.
girlfriend?
So that's what I said. Will you be my
Basically.
girlfriend? And she's like, yes. And I was like, well, good.
And
Cool.
then he went
Gotta
back to play
finish
the
this
game.
basketball.
That's right.
That's right. My team's counting on me, so I got to go.
I bet you played really good after
Right.
that, though. Yeah.
That's right. I felt like I was 7 feet tall and stuff like that. But our relationship was very, very slow. I feel like relationships in general, whether with kids or, adults these days, move so much faster because connectivity is so much more available. And so we didn't see each other except at church.
Right.
And that was only, 2 times a week or 3 times a week at most. And so there were not any cell phones or anything like that. So the relationship kind of like crept along, which I think,
That's
helped it last. And,
Here we
then here we are.
Here we-
Yeah.
17 years later. Oh, 17
Right.
years of marriage.
17 years of marriage. Okay.
Man.
Yes,
All right.
we both went to Mississippi College, and at the end of my freshman year, I proposed to her, and we got married the end of my sophomore year. She was a year ahead of me, even though we started college at the same time. She took full load credits all the time and graduated in 2.5 years.
Wow.
I know. I
Man.
She's
I
so
did the 4-year
smart.
thing.
Yeah.
So was she made better grades than I did. So I definitely married up.
Oh,
Well, that's really so y'all been married for 17 years.
17 years.
Okay.
Yes, just celebrated in May.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have this very vivid memory of our premarital counseling with a guy named Rob Mullins. He pastors a church in Memphis, Tennessee. But he met with us and he asks us, "Hey, do you all want to have children?"
Right.
And it was, "Yeah, we want to have kids." And then he looked at me and he said, "Well, how many kids do you want to have?" And I said, "Well, maybe one after 10 or 15 years of marriage." Because, we were
This
at
was
this
like a
time.
life plan.
Yeah,
here.
I was like, we're going to have the house paid for, and we're not going to have any debt, and then finally, when we can afford it, we're going to have this child, and so one child,
Like
and
10
then,
to 15 years later.
yeah, 10 to
And-
15 years later, after we traveled the world and done everything that we want to do,
Yes.
All the things.
and then he was like, "Okay, well, that's cool." He said, "So Andrea, how about you?" And she said, I want 6. And I still remember he put his hand on my shoulder and he's just like, "Son, you better buckle up."
You're in for a wild ride.
Yes.
And now knowing how many kids y'all have,
Yes.
That's
I see
right.
who won.
You see who won.
Right.
See
Spot
who
on,
won.
Mama.
Yes.
Okay,
Oh,
so
goodness.
when that first baby came, how long have y'all been married?
We had been married just less than 2 years when she arrived.
So not quite the
not
15.
quite 15. That's right.
And we
That's
got married really
Like,
young.
we
I was
were
not
babies.
I was not quite 21 and she was not quite 20.
Wow.
Right.
And we were of the age that when we would go out in public later when we had children, people would still be looking at us like, "Man,
You
these
baby
teenagers having all these
All these
babies
kids.
and stuff like that." But anyway, so we were really young, and a year and a half in, we found out we're expecting, and that was not my plan
Right.
at all.
Okay.
And so if it's one moment I wish I could redo,
No.
is when she told me she was expecting for the first time. Were you afraid or just didn't know how to say it?
I just didn't know how to say it. Right.
Yeah, because I had the
'Cause we
plan.
were-
I'm on the 15-year plan, right?
'Cause you knew
And-
that was not his plan.
That was not his plan.
That's right. And so she wouldn't talk, or she kept smiling at me and then not, and I was just like, "Wait, are you pregnant?" And yes,
Smiling real
and
big.
I'm just struck. I'm like, I don't know how to react, and I wish I could go back in time and be like, "Dude, come on, just say I'm so excited," because it turned out to be a huge blessing. But
That's
I was young, I was immature, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna die! How are we gonna provide for a baby?" And,
my goodness.
and so it's just that whole thing. I felt such tremendous responsibility, as I do now, but in a different way then, that if we have a baby, I'm going to have to do everything to provide for my family, and I don't know if I can do that. So there was a lack of trust on my part in trusting
Because you're the
God's
man
provision.
of the house, too.
Yeah.
That's your job.
Right.
Yeah, so I was just not in the place where I had lived long enough. The promises I knew about God, I've not lived long enough to experience those in my life to realize that, yeah, He really is faithful and He is going to provide, and it is going to be okay. So that was I wish I could redo that moment in our life. But.
Now, and a backstory for that is that I guess maybe within that first year of marriage, I'd had some issues in high school and college and was told that it would probably be very unlikely that I would get pregnant.
Really?
So that even added to the shock factor that,
Right.
whoa, here we
Because
are and we're expecting a baby.
We went through that whole, you're probably not going to have a baby. And of course, that's early on in our marriage.
Right.
It wasn't a long season of thinking those thoughts.
Right.
But so I only wanted one after a long time anyway. And I was like, well, okay, we're going to be okay. But she took it very differently than that. And
I wanted 6.
Yeah, she wanted 6.
So
Yeah.
And
it
in
was-
my mind, I was
this was
like,
not
look, we
working.
got a lot of time in front of us. We'll probably have one,
Right.
something like that. And then she had a procedure and stuff like that. And then we have a baby.
Right.
Like it was that fast.
Right.
Wow. And so that baby is how old now?
She is 15. Oh my goodness.
Crazy. And she's beautiful and so
She is.
sweet.
She is.
She
She is. She brings so much joy to our home and our lives.
She seems like the best helper too. I mean, like even just at church, she's helped me a few times with
Aw.
our littles. So
good. She
Um,
is. She's a great helper.
so after that baby, we're thinking, what? Like she's here.
Right.
You've been told that you would have trouble if ever having a baby. Now
Right.
you have that you didn't even plan for.
exactly.
So what does life look like now?
right. So now it's okay. Well, this was okay. Like we have a baby. We're parents, and we thought we had it all together. Like she was a great baby. Slept through the night, never cried, and so it's like, okay, we can do this, and let's have another baby. And
I had a heart change. It was once Ashlyn came into the world, she made me what I am. She made me a
Right.
dad. And
so now it's like it's okay.
it's
let's do
okay.
this.
And I was like, you know what? We can have
We can
another
have another
one.
baby.
We can do this. And
Right.
so my mind was quickly changed once I met Ashlyn.
That's right. That's right. So when Ashlyn was 2 years old, we decided, hey, let's try to have another baby. And I was young and didn't really know much about miscarriage actually at the time. And I don't think I'd ever heard another woman talk about it. And so we got pregnant fairly quickly. And then just a few weeks after that, experienced our first miscarriage. And I remember just being so shattered by it because, one, I had not heard any other woman's story. And just you think that's not going to happen to me, even if I had known about it. And I was that put me in a very low place. We had a healthy pregnancy, and then now to lose this baby was just very, again, it just shattered me in an unexpected way.
Right. Because it's also, if you don't know anybody that struggled with that, it's probably hard to know who to talk to about it too,
Exactly.
to even figure out how to process it.
Exactly. So many questions. So many questions.
Yeah, I
And-
mean,
Go
did
ahead.
Did you have any? I mean, you said you never heard anybody talk of it. Did you have anybody to talk to?
There were a few women that were in the medical field that were friends of mine, and so I was able to talk with them,
Okay.
and they, helped walk me through it. And it was the, hey, you've had a healthy pregnancy before. A lot of women have a miscarriage the second time around. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. You'll have another healthy baby, and not downplaying what had happened, but I guess trying to use the medical side of things. That hey, there's hope. It's
Right,
okay. You'll
right.
you'll be able to have another baby.
So after that, from what I remember about y'all's story, you continued, you got pregnant again not long after?
Not long after that, we did, and that is our second born, our
Okay.
third pregnancy. That's
Okay.
Adeline Kate.
That's Adeline.
Everybody calls her AK. I gave her this beautiful long name, and she
And
goes by AK.
She is a ray of sunshine, to say the
is,
least.
yes,
the
she
kid has
is.
never had an unhappy day in her life.
That's
She
right.
is
Every
just-
day is the best day ever.
Yeah. Hey,
for her.
how was school today? Dad, it was just incredible.
Yes.
She has the most energy.
She
of-
does.
Yes.
She does.
Yes. And
Straight
she has
to
She
a
would just share just a
Right.
little bit of that.
And our
Sunshine
only
and joy.
child with all of our children except for our baby we'll talk about in a little bit are like towheads, like
Blonde.
blonde,
hair.
like they are blonde children.
Yep.
Yes.
And but Adeline is by far the most, like, she stands out.
Yes, like
in a crowd.
sunshine, like we
Like
keep saying.
sunshine.
Yeah.
Yes.
She does.
So we experienced that pregnancy and had Adel and Kate, and everything was healthy and good. And I think at that point, I put miscarriage behind me. Like, okay, well, I've had a healthy baby, I've experienced a miscarriage, and now we've had another healthy baby. So, this won't happen again.
Right.
I guess
And our life situation had changed. Adeline Kate, we tell her often, she's our only Tennessee baby.
she is.
Okay.
We had moved
So
to Tennessee.
I'm from East Tennessee. That's where my family lives. And my dad is a minister. And I met Andrea by moving to Memphis. And Andrea's from the Memphis area, northwest Mississippi, I guess, is where she's from. So during that season when AK was born, we lived in Tennessee around lots of family. And so we tell her often she's our lone Tennessee.
Yes, our
Tennessee
Tennessee
girl.
sunshine girl. That's right.
So after her, we're thinking, okay, well, we've had two healthy pregnancies,
Right.
one miscarriage in there. Didn't understand why, but I guess that's kind of
Exactly.
normal. What we're told.
Right, what we're told.
So what
Exactly.
comes after Adeline?
Right. So after that, when she was about a year old, we decided, okay, we'll try to have another baby. And again, no trouble getting pregnant, so we're grateful for that. That was in August of 2011. We found out that we're expecting, and then in September, I had a miscarriage. And I do remember thinking, I was just in a state of shock with that one. The first one, like I said, it just really shattered my heart because I had never experienced a loss like that before. But this one was a shock. Like, how in the world did this happen again? I don't understand.
We have two healthy children.
Right. So
Healthy pregnancies that, like, now why is this now a second
this
miscarriage?
doesn't make sense. And we had moved at the time. We were no longer in Tennessee. We had moved to Brookhaven, Mississippi, where Matt was serving as a pastor. And so I had a new doctor, new medical perspective, and she was wonderful. Dr. Gray came alongside and just really encouraged my heart, that sometimes this does happen again. But the same story as most will hear, just keep trying. I'm sure you'll have another healthy pregnancy, another healthy baby. And so we did. And in March of 2012, found out, well, I guess it was February of 2012, we found out we were expecting. And then in March, we had another miscarriage.
Wow.
And I went to a follow-up appointment from that and found out I was pregnant again.
Wow.
So in a 9 months' time, I had been pregnant 3 different times. And I remember that last pregnancy that ended up being our 4th miscarriage. I was in such a low, dark place. Scared to death. I mean, when you've had miscarriage and then another one, and you've gone to the doctor and they can't explain to you why. There's nothing technically that you're doing wrong. They can't give you any assurance or, steps to follow to ensure that everything will be okay. I was overwhelmed by fear, the fear of loss, because in my mind, that pregnancy, which again did end in miscarriage, was doomed from the get-go in my mind. Like, I had no hope that baby was going to be okay, because at that point, I mean, my goodness, what was to prevent,
that
baby from not being placed in my arms? And I remember finding out at that appointment that I was pregnant again, and just telling God, like, I can't do this. I can't bear the pain and the hurt of loss again. Why? I was not happy about being pregnant that time, because in my mind it was just like, why would you do this to me again? I don't understand. I don't want to feel this pain and hurt. I carried that baby a little bit further, and then in June found out that we went and there was no heartbeat. And so I did have to go into the hospital that time. That was the only time I had to go into the hospital. And that was actually your birthday of 2012.
Oh, wow.
And came home from that, and I just told the Lord at that time, I said, no more. Like, we will not try again. I am broken. I'm hurt, and I can't do this again, ever again. And so I said, Lord, we'll just be grateful for our 2 girls, and we'll love them and pour into them and teach them about you, but no more. I'm done. And I told Matt that. I said, we're done. I can't do it anymore.
As a husband, what's that like? I mean, because you're a daddy to these babies too, but
That's
then
right.
watching your wife grieve, are you able to grieve during this time too? Like, what goes on for you?
So, there's a mixture of grief because you're grieving for yourself because, I'm half responsible for this baby coming into the world. Babies are, a combination of what God's done through mom and dad. So you're grieving for yourself, but for me, I was more than I was even, I think, grieving for the baby that had passed, because we personally believe that when, like, people ask us, how many children do you all have? If we have a moment to explain it, we'll say we have 10, and we include those miscarriages in the number of our children. But when I think about that time, it was grieving for her because I'd never seen her that way. She was just so broken, and I just felt so powerless. Like there was nothing that I could do. I'm not a practitioner of medicine, but even if I was, they weren't able to do anything either.
Right.
And it was just this helplessness. And I think the first miscarriage was sad. We were talking about this last night when we were thinking about what we were going to say. It's hard for me to remember them individually. And I know that sounds perhaps crazy, but I think of them as like a block of I think of them as just especially the three that occurred back to back. I just think it was just like a seasonal block of just great sadness. And the last one, like she said, was the one that was furthest along, and she had to go to the hospital after that miscarriage. That was very hard. And there was this feeling of hopelessness. There was also this feeling of, okay, have I done something wrong? Like, am I being punished? Because, like, I tease Andrea all the time. We like children's movies.
Imagine that with 6 kids.
Right. And one of the movies that we both like and will quote to each other is Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
And there's a line in Mary Poppins that when they measure how tall Mary Poppins is, instead of a height measurement, it just says practically perfect. And I've lived with this woman for 17 years, and I still think of her that way. Like I know she sins because the Bible says she does, but like I'm not aware of it, and it's just so.
Andrea, that's a lot to live up
Yeah,
to.
exactly.
No pressure.
But obviously, I'm jesting to make a point is that I know she's not perfect and stuff like that, but there is this sense that, wow, if this is happening, it's not happening because of her. It's got to be happening because of me. And I don't mean like that there's something physically wrong with me. I never really thought that because we had 2 healthy children. I thought it as, oh, I'm doing something wrong, or maybe I'm being punished for some kind of sin I've committed. And
That's a lot to carry.
That's a lot to carry. And by the way, today, perhaps then, but especially today, I don't believe that's the way God works.
Right.
But again, believing and experiencing thoughts are 2 different things, because there's not always an immediate connection between what we believe and what we experience emotionally. Right. And I just carried around a tremendous guilt of just thinking, well, perhaps this is me having to pay for all of my sins or something like that. And I don't believe God works that way.
Right.
But that's where I was.
But when you're walking through things like that and everything's so irrational, it almost feels like, well, that's the only thing that makes sense right now. Like, what else could be going on except if it's because of something that I've done or didn't do, whatever. Right. And so, yeah, I remember feeling the same way as we were struggling to. We have 4 babies in heaven. Ours miscarriages look a little different. But yeah, I just remember thinking like, what there's got to be a reason why, because I feel like us as humans, that's just how we work. If we're given like an answer to something, why did this happen, it's almost like my heart can handle it a little bit more. At least that's how I feel like I feel. So after this fourth loss, and you're saying, I'm not doing this anymore.
Right. Just done.
Where do we go from there?
And I didn't want her to. Like that was
Right.
really hard.
That was
and
a
it
big
was
shift.
it was I remember us having a pretty I don't know in 17 years of marriage if we've ever argued, but there were some heated moments. But that was definitely there was one of those times of like, hey, we're through. We're not
Wow.
doing this anymore.
Wow. That's a tough place to be, but I do know that's not where y'all's story ends. So this
Lots
week
of
we're
say.
going to end it here, but then y'all will be on again next week to keep going with your story. Thank y'all for listening to Hannah's Heart, and we'll see you back next week.